It's 1989. Coventry is just emerging from a very traumatic recession, which resulted in the closing of many of the city's manufacturing industries and the loss of many jobs. From this depression, a new movement was born. This new scene was different than anything that had ever taken place in the city before. It seemed to work against the system. The authorities didn't understand, so the scene had to go underground.
Most of the early parties were held in hillfields. They were like dodgy little flats. Most of them were empty. Like someone would kick your door in, set up the speakers, set up the decks, tap into the power supply, and away you are.
What the people wanted was dance music to dance to, and they gave that, and it was wanted for like late hours in the morning. But the problem was that there wasn't enough places that were going on late enough to cater for their needs.
Because it was getting well stale. It was well stale, yeah. The clubs were just like 80s style, you know, just pop music everywhere you went.
Coventry nightlife was just like Park Lane, short skirt, collar and tie. It was dead aggressive.
Yeah, loads of fighting, always, every time you go to a club.
Coventry used to be quite territorial in that you used to have people from, say, Wood End, and you used to have certain gangs that come from Tile Hill. And because the way that the city's set up, we all used to meet in the city centre, and what you'd find was there'd sometimes be a couple of violent clashes between people from different areas. Well, that all disappeared. So, like, young people that found that they couldn't actually stay, let's say, clubs for a certain time, or the music wasn't right, were eventually looking to promote the whole thing themselves.
It must have been around 1988 we got into it. It was like we were all working as doormen in a place called the Tally-O. And then after a bit, this sort of house music turned up, and like, you know, it started going. It started off with 20 people, and it sort of, you know, it grew and grew and grew. People, every week, more and more people were coming. So we ended up renting a club across the road called Reflections on a Tuesday night. Started off with 100 people, and it just grew and grew and grew. People from Birmingham started coming over. That's how it really happened, really.
The volumes of people that were like coming to the dudes were getting bigger, so you needed bigger locations. So the locations started getting bigger and bigger each time.
And we went from there, and we started getting like, we got a little warehouse. Like the first warehouse was in Canal Road in Coventry, and it was my brother and a lad called Bam Bam who'd done the very first like warehouse party, and it started off 200 people turned up. It started from there, really. People didn't really know what it was.
People wanted more, and they were almost like demanding more. So the people that were running the dances or the sound systems that were going on catered for that need, because the clubs couldn't cater for it.
If you went to a person who had a warehouse, who owned it, you said, can we use your warehouse to do a do? And it, you know, and they said, yeah. You didn't need an entertainment's licence, so we just done it.
It was like an old warehouse. And I think they used to sell cars. It used to be an auction place, yeah. And just a dingy old place, really, which put a few things in, a few lights in, looked good.
And it was cold. We just had a few backdrops with big smiley faces on, and a few flashing lights. That was it, kicking off. We were just like sitting there waiting for people to turn up. No one turned up until like about 2:30. Yeah, everyone piled in, you know, like, and then we did another one later on, the same venue. We were queuing up to get in, you know, like, that was it. Party started.
The energy was there, the hype, you know what I mean? It was all to do with meeting, actually going to it, being there, stuff like that, you know.
And that's what made it exciting, because nobody knew where it was, whether it was going to be on, whether we were going to get it off and started. There was The whole thing was excitement, and driving there as well.
First of all, it was sort of like a word of mouth thing, and after a while, it became a flyer thing. People used to get little bits of paper and like write down there's a party on, but there was no details where it was. But you knew where to meet, like Freetons, Italian, Deflections, you knew where the meeting points, and if you went there, somebody would know and tell you where it was.
Talio was just mobbed, the whole street, all up the street, everywhere. And we'd just wait for one person to come and tell us where it is, you know, come on, let's go. There'd be a big convoy to it.
In the sort of main pubs, you'd have one of the like crew setting up a party, they'd be there, and I'd ring up a number, while they'd ring up their mates, and their mates would tell them, right, the party's going on at so-and-so, so-and-so.
That was a good buzz about it in them days. People didn't know where the party was going to be. So, you know, we used to have meeting points and all that and say, right, bring them. We used to get on the mobile phones and things, right, bring them all in. Some people might find out, but we'd try and keep it between just a close set of people, do you know what I mean? So that way, like, no one would find out where the venue, the authorities couldn't find out where it was going to be and stop it. And then we used to, like, by the time the authorities got there, the party was up and running. You know, they used to come, the land had been hired out to us, we show them, like, this has been hired out to us. They had to go away, like, you know, because it was legal. Well, it wasn't legal, it wasn't illegal, because we'd been rented the land anyway. Do you know what I mean?
The atmosphere was more of a friendly atmosphere. People were dancing and enjoying themselves. It was really something that was very beneficial to the city. For some reason, the media wanted to get hold of it and hype it and put a lot of negative things about it.
The authorities began to clamp down on illegal parties taking place in and around the city. The press coverage was intense.
The parties were illegal because of the venues, really, because it was held in sort of warehouses, unsafe warehouses, barns, flats. There was no sort of health and safety element. It's not, you know, if you go to a club, you've got like fire escapes, you've got all sorts of things if anything went wrong. These parties were just spontaneous, they were there and then there was no sort of planned fire escape or nothing. So I think it was a health and safety sort of thing. Plus it got linked with drugs.
I think in the early days, because it was so new, the difficulty was there was obviously a demand for what people were supplying. There were no facilities for them to supply them to because there were no legitimate venues then.
In some warehouses, I'd have looked and thought, you know, you could have thought, well, you know, the way you had to get in through corrugated iron and, you know, you're actually breaking in. I mean, they're obviously closed for a reason.
There was a lot of publicity, a lot of adverse publicity, some of it which I don't think was merited, frankly. But they had the problems to contend with because of drugs, because very much the high-profile project was on drugs. That's what the media were highlighting. Public safety was clearly a problem which had to be dealt with, and that's what the press highlighted, and the very great potential for harm.
The next event after the warehouse, though, I got into someone who had a mansion, and they had a big back garden under the mansion. They says we can have his garden for a do, and we put a sound system in there. We put a few lights up and things, and we had DJs playing.
A bit of bad luck that night because we had police hiding in the bushes. And helicopter found us, found where the rave was.
Because it was in a field, and I think people going to different fields, the helicopters use a full beam to sort of like highlight where to go. So I think they sort of like, well, it's going to go on and we can't stop it. If they were to try and stop it, it would have been a riot. So they sort of like, if it's happening, it will happen sort of correctly-ish.
Because it was a lot to understand, because it's kind of a different world, you know. And if you didn't know anything about it, then you just go, what's going on here, you know what I mean? Because I remember I used to take a lot of people there and they couldn't understand it. Not going again.
I think somebody turned off the generator or something, and everyone was still jumping up and down. We had this ice cream band in the corner, and every time the ice cream band sort of like played this little jingle, everyone jumped up thinking the music was back on. And this must have happened for like an hour. This ice cream band just playing its jingle, and everyone got cheering.
We had about 300 or 400 people there, you know, and we just did it for the crack, really. You know, we were just lads, and we got into something like that seemed quite good at the time, and so we've done that, and then we got another warehouse, like, you know, and we've done another do after that do, and more people turned up, and we thought, you know, this is growing, this is.
The atmosphere just totally changed. Unbelievable. In fact, one person even commented to me, he said, everybody seems to have stopped fighting now and everybody's dancing.
And I used to hear people saying, oh God, I know him from the football matches, you know, like some Birmingham posse would come over and like, wow, it's them who we had a fight with, you know. Maybe they're shaking hands, going and laughing about it. And that was strange, do you know what I mean? Very strange.
At first, when it first started, I mean, you wouldn't get Birmingham people coming over to Coventry for a night out, because it was all rival football fans and things like that. And then when this scene came out, it brought people together. It sort of ignored the football hooligan element of what used to go on, and everybody was dead friendly, got on. It was all about meeting people. The atmosphere at the events were, you know, brilliant.
I thought every rave was the last one, you know. Right, they're going to catch up with us soon, you know, and just stop it. So I think that's another thing as well, why people used to enjoy it so much, because of the fact it could be the last one.
It helped people from, say, that may have been suffering from the recession or depression, because a lot of those people hadn't really been given that many breaks in society anyway. So it was an opportunity for them. And because it was illegal, it meant they had to stand on their own and do it. So using their own initiative, everybody who's developed and has been successful from that has really achieved a lot, because nobody's helped them.
Request